Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody that's viewing on the social media channels. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And my LinkedIn audience, if you are on here and anyone else on the social media channels, we want to know where you are tuning in from. Rep your city, show a passion for where you're tuning in from. Today, we have Caryn Kopp on the show, and she is going to help you open doors to the people that you need to be connected with so that you can live life on purpose. Before we jumped on, we were talking a little bit about being purposeful in what we're doing. And sometimes as we're going along in our careers and our entrepreneurial journeys, things can seem to happen on accident. And this is what this show is about, opening those doors on purpose to get the clients that you want, the clients that you need to take your vision to the next level. Stick with me. We'll be right back after the Biz Dev Live theme.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T, Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
So I'm excited to get into this. Caryn is the chief door opener at Kopp Consulting, whose door open service has helped thousands secure initial meetings at the executive level in almost every major company. Caryn Kopp has been dubbed the chief door opener because she gets her clients in the door with their prospects. A best-selling author, internationally recognized speaker, and an expert in business development, Caryn can be seen in Inc., Fortune Magazine, Forbes and Newsweek. She is a faculty member of Verne, Harnish's Gazelle's Growth Institute and is the sales messaging coach for scaling up coaches worldwide. She co-authored Biz Dev Done Right, so you know she's in the right place, and wrote The Path to the Cash, the words you need to bypass those darn prospect objections. Kopp Consulting has been recognized on the Inc. 5000 list for 2 consecutive years and named one of New Jersey's 50 fastest growing companies. Caryn has received leadership awards, including the Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. Please welcome to the show the amazing, the courageous Caryn Kopp. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
It's exciting to be here, and I love that opener. What a great opener. I'm sitting here dancing, having a great time.
So we got folks checking in. We got Samantha Borland, fun introduction. Caryn, I like your background. Alexander Rosen, part of my community here. Hey, familia, tuning in from Ohio. We got Braden Daniels, the magician behind the business and the leadership. Thanks for being here. We got Jose Ortiz checking in from New York. He just did a fabulous presentation, which I'm going to just pat myself on the back for. We'll do a little bit of coaching with him this morning for our networking group. Braden says, welcome, Caryn. Samantha, welcome, everybody. I work for Kopp, and I love helping companies grow. I love seeing that. There we go. Samantha, thank you for being in the comments. We appreciate you. All right, so Caryn, tell me a little bit about what you do to help people, and then we're going to get into some of this backstory.
So we are best known at Kopp Consulting for the door opener service. And that's where we use senior level business developers from our team to represent our clients and get our clients the executive level prospect meetings that they need. So what we do is we provide access, because if you don't get in the door for that first meeting, you really don't get to do anything else. And so we help our clients get that door open.
I love that. Right. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but whoops, no, that's not the right one. There we go. The first meeting leads to everything else. Right. So we're going to get into some of these talking points, but I want to get to some of your story. So, you know, you had, and we were talking about this before we jumped on, an interesting journey, because you were headed in one direction. You thought you were headed in one direction, and you came back to the direction that you were thinking you were dead set against, right? So, talk to us a little this story. Let us know, what little Caryn wanted to be when she was growing up, or what you didn't want to be.
So Cameron and I we had this whole conversation right before we came on live to talk to everybody, and he wanted to know what little Caryn wanted. And it's like, it's actually what little Caryn didn't want. I wanted to do anything different than what my father did. My father owned his own business and he was in sales. And so if you know anything about my background, I own my own business and I'm in sales, which is kind of comical. So all roads, no matter what I did, led me to exactly where I am. Just like my dad, own my own business, and I'm in sales.
I love it. I love it. So talk to us a little bit about the journey, right? So you're growing up. Talk to us a little bit about, the businesses, because I think it's always interesting. What did our parents influence us so much, right? And I've talked to person after person, and whether the parents weren't there and it was the lack of parental structure, I have some of that going on in my life, or mom was this and dad was this, and that's where I get this piece from. So what did you get from mom and dad?
So my father, as I said, was an entrepreneur, and he was figuring it out. He designed and manufactured men's neckties, silk neckties. That was everything to him. And he was brilliant at it. He made a whole business out of it, traveled all over the world, and sold to some of the premier retailers. And I did his books when I was in high school. He taught me how to do his books. And I sat there with a pencil at that time because QuickBooks wasn't around. And I did the books for him. My mother she started out as a school teacher, and she went into corporate just because the roads led her there. She at one point just needed to make more money than she could as a teacher, and went into corporate. And she moved her way up the ladder. She started out in sales and moved her way up the ladder. And by the time she was ready to retire, she held a very high level position within SEBA. And was on the board of the Chemical Association and in charge of scholarships for other people and things like that. So I think the business sense and the practical sense, the ability to think through a problem, really came from them. I grew up in the house with a gifted child, and the gifted child wasn't me. So that actually adds a very interesting dimension, because there was a journey when I was going through middle school, high school, because my sibling was so gifted in one area, and I was looking for what was I gifted in. And I was a competitive gymnast. I was into sports and things like that. But actually, I think you'll appreciate this story. When I was 11, I had my first cold calling job. And in those days, you can employ an 11-year-old. And these days, you can't. But the family I babysat for owned a lawn doctor franchise. And the mother said to me one day, "Caryn, you have a really good phone voice. Why don't you go to one of the cubicles that we have in the basement and pick up the phone book at the time and start making phone calls and see if you can get us lawn evaluations?" And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. So I went down to the basement and I had the phone book. And she gave me this really big book of scripts, which I found interesting. And she said, "This is how you use this. When you are talking to somebody and they deliver you an objection, you open the book, look for the tab of the objection, and then scroll your finger down the page to get to the right spot. And then you read them the response." Well, it took me probably 5 calls to realize that was never going to work. You have to know the answers for the objections cold. It's amazing that was the person who was teaching people to do this, but we'll leave that to the side for a second.
Well, and I just want to interject here, because there's two points already where you talked about it. First, you had dad that was having you do the books. And then at this young age, you're doing these call things that, some people aren't, doing or having the first experience with until they're like officially out of college and into the real world.
Right.
So I love both of these experiences, because what better grounding. I mean, I think one of the most challenging pieces it has definitely been one of the biggest challenges for me in entrepreneurship is managing the books. And here you are from a young age, you're doing that. And then the other challenge here, prospecting, which I think is so difficult, talking to clients, especially cold calls, anything of a cold call kind of nature. You're talking to somebody for the first time, trying to get that business, and you're doing both of these things at a young age. It's very impressive.
Well, thank you. And what's really interesting about that is that it's not like I didn't mind the prospecting. I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was so fascinating that I could change what I say in the middle of a conversation and it would change the outcome. I could change the intonation or the speed of my delivery and it would change the outcome. And years later, I mean, we have 2 trademarks in sales messaging with Kopp Consulting, the moment of yes and the Kopp Gap method of sales messaging. And I think at that early age, I was so conscious of the fact that I could be deliberate with my words and it would change the outcome to what I wanted, which was the meeting. And it wasn't like I was celebrating every single time I got one. It was just like, okay, that's another one, let's move on. That's another one, let's move on. I'm a very methodical person. It hurts me to skip over the next person who's supposed to be contacted.
And I'm going to just say impressive. If you're watching this right now and you're in the comments, I need you to do #impressive because I need to know that you guys are watching this and you're in the comments and you're engaged. Because I think, I'm inspired now. I'm like, all right, I got to get my 4 children that are on my roof, to work because that is such great training for the future. So you're doing this stuff. This is your first interaction to prospecting. What does this lead into?
So, that was an accident. Like I said, it was just the mother saying, hey, will you do this? And I did it and I found it easy. Fast forward, I was 16. I was selling magazines over the phone because it was just easy. I had a bunch of those odd jobs. I always taught gymnastics too. In addition to being a competitive gymnast, I really loved working with the kids and helping them to improve. I think that also had to do with access. Like we give our clients access to opportunities that they wouldn't have. And the same was true when I was teaching gymnastics. I gave the kids opportunities to access higher levels of gymnastic skills that they wanted and didn't know how to do it. A lot of times there were techniques and tricks. If you just move your arms up like this, you'll get it. And then they move their arms up like this and they get something. And so I really enjoyed helping people get over that hump. And then when it came time to pick schools, I went to Babson College undergrad. They're best known for entrepreneurship. And like I said, all roads led me there. I thought I was going to go into PR and live in New York. But once I found out how much PR paid, I realized I couldn't live in New York. I would have to do something else. So at the time, I'd love to say.
So #reality, right? My folks in the audience, right? Who has gone to that moment in their life where they're like, okay, best laid plan. Okay, I want to go here. I want to, that's what that pays, right? Or, that's what that looks like. Absolutely. So now you got to make a decision.
Yeah. So we had gone through so many rounds of the interviews that were coming to school. And I would love to sit here and tell you that I selected sales, but actually sales again selected me because the only interviews that were coming to campus at that late stage in the year, because I had pursued PR for so long, were sales. And I ended up getting a job with Sylvania out of the Danvers, Massachusetts area. They were owned by GTE at the time. And I sold light bulbs, home electrical devices, and flash cubes, if anybody remembers what a flash cube is. And if not, go find somebody with gray hair and ask them.
All right. Yeah. Because what is a flash cube? Now you said it. I got to know.
Yeah. Well, it used to go on a camera.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I know what it is. Yes. I've seen them. Yes.
That's hysterical. And they moved me out to Chicago. And I stayed there. I was in outside sales. I called on grocery, drug, hardware, home center, mass merchandiser, and sold into enterprise light bulb programs.
And so as you're going along and you're getting into these different sales opportunities, obviously you had this experience early on. I know on the resume you did brand management, you were director of sales at Next Generation Radio. What are some of the lessons you're kind of learning along the way? Was there some big failures, some big challenges? Were there some big successes that sort of lit the way for you?
Well, I mean, one of the things I could tell you is that there were different parts of sales that I realized that some that I liked better than others, some that I was just a natural. It was like a comfortable shoe, which was the prospecting area. I just love that. I found account management to be a little slow for me. I like developing relationships with people, but I really loved the prospecting. I could feel my way through a conversation, and people would say, "How did you know how to say that?" I'm like, I don't know. I just did. It just came out. It's not. There's a lot of DNA when it comes to a great prospector. Like there are people who are responsible for prospecting, and they do it, and they may even be good at it, but it doesn't mean they love it. When you have somebody who's got the DNA, who really loves this job, it's like beautiful music. You can feel your way through a conversation. You can get outcomes that nobody else can get, and then have access to opportunities that others can't get either. And that I basically built my company on that. One thing I didn't tell you before is when I was in college, I owned my own business, believe it or not. So I sold neckties. My father gave me a box of neckties, and I would sit in the dining room, location, and people had to pass my box of ties in order to get into the dining room and to leave the dining room. So I sold during holiday times and interview periods, Father's Day, things like that. And that was my first experience having people who worked for me. So I would have them sit with the box of ties while I was in class and realize that this was a very interesting way to earn money and provide other people opportunities too.
I love that. I love that. And I want to go back to something you were saying before in terms of like some people are built for example, account management. There's people that love that continued relationship. And then there's other people that are like, I want the new, right? I want to create a new relationship. I met this person. We got in the door. I had this great conversation. I learned about. I want to learn about somebody new. And then there's other people that are like, I want to go back to what's familiar, and I want to take care of this person every day. And I've seen those people in my career back, and definitely as you were talking, I was reminded of my medical education days, where inside of Omnicom, they had this company called the Scianomics Group. And so we were managing sales reps for Genentech and other pharmaceutical companies. And so, you had account management people that's what they did. They just followed up with those teams and made sure that their clients were taken care of. They knew what kind of flavors of coffee, whatever, they're people, they knew their people and they were good at it. And then there was other people that were good at that prospecting thing. And it also takes me to remembering Barbara Corcoran on the stage. Are you a fan of Barbara Corcoran?
Yes, I actually was at an event where she was too, and went up and said hello to her.
Yeah, she's an amazing person. Blew me away the first time because I maybe watched Shark Tank, but I didn't pay attention to who the people were on it and anything. So I saw her the first time on stage, and she talked, she just blew me away. But one of the things that you were talking about that she talks about a lot is she was really great at the sales, the marketing piece of it, but not so great at the bookkeeping aspect of it and finding that partnership with somebody. So, you either realize, you really enjoy prospecting and you want to do it, or you know enough about it to find that person that can do it for you and really enjoys it. But that division of labor is so important. And then you're talking about that in your college experience. I know how to do this. I know where to get the materials from. I can put the people in place. I can help them out, and I can get an education and make some income as well, which is, I think, the goal in terms of life itself, in terms of entrepreneurship. That's where people want to be, where they can actually run a business, not a job, but run a business. And you need the sales aspect one way or another. The prospecting has to come from somewhere. So I'm excited.
Has to come from somewhere. People weren't all built with relationships. They came from somewhere. right? And sometimes there are companies that go into new markets and they need new relationships. I mean, look what just happened with the pandemic. And there were so many people whose best clients and centers of influence, which is where they had always had their business growth come from, they were no longer their best referral sources anymore, and they had to go and rebuild. That's actually made our company and our door opener service that much more relevant in today's market, especially as the trade shows, the in-person networking and the conferences are slower to come back. You need to be able to meet the decision makers somehow. And so for people who are either struggling to meet decision makers, or they've been successful and they have a lot in their pipeline, and now they're working on the middle to the bottom of the funnel, they still need to keep the top of the funnel full. And that's where our door openers can really help, especially if people need to get in at the executive level.
All right, so talk to us a little bit about this whole door opening thing. How did you come up with the business? And then what is the secret sauce to success? I always talk about this stuff. You know, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. So what is the secret sauce for people? Obviously, you started this business and you had to, you know, sort of understand intuitively that this was going to work out somehow, some way. How did you sort of get the initial idea to start the business, and then what's led to the massive success, working with all of these different companies, getting people in the door with all the biggest companies? I don't know if we were talking about United States or internationally, sounded like a little bit of both. What is that piece that allowed you to grow this business?
So I'll start with, you have like 6 questions in there. So I'm going to start with the first one.
I'm infamous for that. Thank you.
But I'm a very methodical person, so I'm going to break them down, and I hope I get all of them. But where did the idea come from? Where all great ideas come from, the bathroom of a gym. That's where this idea came from. I had taken 2 years off. I had my youngest child, who is now just turned 25. So that tells you how long ago I started this company. Is almost 23 years ago now. And I was trying to think of things that I could do that were in my sweet spot that would allow me to work for about 15 hours a week, because he was going into 15-hour-a-week nursery school, and still earn more of a consulting rate. And leverage my talents. And so my original idea was to come up with all the information that somebody might need in order to have an effective prospect meeting. But what I realized after thinking it through is that's not the real value. The real value is if we sit somebody in front of the exact right decision maker for a warm, productive conversation. That was the value. So when I'm in the bathroom of this gym, so a lady calls out, "Hey, I have a promotion agency. Does anybody want any part-time work?" So I come out of the stall and I said, "I think I'm overqualified, but let's talk." And she really wanted more of an assistant, clerical. And I said, I'm not going to do that kind of work, but here's something I can do for a consulting rate. And then it just came out of my mouth. I said, "How would it be if I got you in the door with your prospects for the first meeting?" This is what she did. She goes, "Oh, you could do that? You would do that for me?" And I said, "Sure, I could do that for you." And then as I started to go into different situations, I started using that language. So there was somebody I knew at the pool, and he actually became my first client. And he had a financial company, and he said, "What are you going to do with your 15 hours now that your son's going into nursery school?" And I said, "Well, I've had this business idea. I'm going to get my clients in the door with their prospects for the first meeting." Same reaction, Caryn. He said, "Can you do that for me?" And I said, "Sure, we could do that for you." And so that was my first client. My second client, actually, Caryn, you're going to love this. They were a meeting planning company. And that was at the kindergarten welcome lunch. Same conversation. "What are you doing with your time?" I said, "I'm going to get my clients in the door with their prospects." And she said, "Really? Can you do that for me?" And I was with them
I think I can speak for some business owners. For anybody to come up, I mean, I think nowadays we get like 1,000 different messages on LinkedIn or email if you have CEO or president or whatever in your title and you're out there, there's a lot of messages coming through that, oh, we can get leads for you and we can get, but to get somebody in person that you know, like, trust, that's saying to you, I have the ability to prospect for you, and to have any kind of sort of confidence in that person's word is somewhat true, is an incredibly rarefied air, because I think most people, especially, admin level, you bring in staff employees into a company, that's the last thing that most people want to do.
Right. Most people really hate this part of the job. Even salespeople, they just really love the meeting. They love developing the relationship and closing the sale. In the world of hunters, what's interesting and often a blind spot is that there are different kinds of hunters. The hunter who loves going on the meeting and closing the sale, we call them the closers in our world. And then there are those few, this rare DNA, who loves the job of getting that initial conversation started and getting an outcome out of it. They can feel their way through the conversation. We call them the openers. That is the only kind of person we hire in our company. It is a very different kind of salesperson. The interview process is different to find them. The compensation process is different. Everything is different about this, but yet there are many companies out there that treat this as end-to-end, open through close, which does work for certain companies for sure. But in many situations, if you break the parts of the sales process apart, you actually achieve greater efficiencies, and salespeople can work in their sweet spot for longer periods of time doing what they love.
Let me ask you this question just on the tail end of this for my entrepreneurs, my business owners, people are building out their, small to medium-sized businesses, in this space, right? You have a situation where you yourself, you reach out to companies and you probably do not love. You're probably feeling it's disjointed. You got somebody that's selling you a service. I'm going to knock the ADPs of the world, people that I've actually worked with, the CPA firms of the world. All right, this person talks you into the business. They're going to deliver this product, this service for you. They hand you off to the team, and now you can't get a hold of somebody to get a problem worked. And so that's sort of the argument against, right? The, full service kind of range is because I feel like you sold me and you baited me and you switched me. What do you tell companies in order to get comfortable with that person? Because, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're passionate. We want to help our clients. We want to take care of them. We want to make sure they're looked after, that they don't feel like that. Is what kind of system and process are you telling them or asking them to put in place so that doesn't happen, so that they can retain these people?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You need a very tight handoff process, and I'll describe the way we do it for our clients. Our door openers represent our clients as if they were a member of our client's team, like a senior member of our client's team. So in the eyes of the prospects, Kopp Consulting doesn't even exist. Our door opener is representing our client. And I'll describe what's happening now. We can get our clients our in-person meetings, but most clients and most prospects right now want Zoom meetings, which is fine. And it affords us a wonderful opportunity to do a warmer, more professional handoff by having our door opener on the meeting with our client and the prospect. And so what that does for us is it allows us to set up the meeting and remind the prospect why we're there. If there's a tech problem that the prospect is handling or having, we'll handle it and make sure that that meeting still happens. Then we turn it over to our client, who has been coached ahead of time on the best practices associated with having the best conversation. And we always remind our clients at the end of that first meeting, you not only close up for next steps, but most importantly, you ask for a date and time for the next meeting. 99.9% of our first meetings go to second meetings. And when our door opener is on that Zoom meeting with our client, we make sure that happens. And
let me highlight this, because I think this is such a big part. I definitely noticed a difference in the things that I do with clients, with prospects, with guests for the show. But whenever you reach out to somebody and you don't have a call to action, you've put the time into putting the copy in place, maybe you've even customized it, really in detail for this person, but you get to the end of that message and you haven't set up something specific for them to do. And I'm not saying, let me know if you'd like to set up a meeting. That's not the way to do it.
Well, it's very reactive, and a lot of salespeople do that. In fact, when I'm coaching sales teams or even our clients and their sales teams, and they'll say, well, I didn't get to the next step. And I'll say, okay, let me see the communication that happened right before it trailed off. And inevitably, the communication is unclear. Either there's no call to action. The prospect just doesn't know what you want. Help your prospects make a decision.
And it's so
make it easy for them.
It's so easy in this day and age. We got things like Calendly, all these different calendar software tools. Pick a date on the calendar, go, right? And or whatever your piece is, whatever your best practice is, but get them to that next step. Make it easy. Make it a click of a button. Don't make me think about it. Don't make me have to call the secretary and schedule dates and coordinate. Make it easy, for goodness sake. And it's just not that hard to do. I want to ask the audience here as we kind of get into our takeaway portion of the show. Do you hunt for clients? Let me know. I put the question up on the screen. Do you hunt for clients? Are you on the hunt for clients? Let me know in the comments. Samantha, prod these folks for me in the comments. I need to know, are they actively searching for new clients, and how are they going about it? So just put a yes in the comments. If you hunt for new clients, let me know you're listening. Let me know you're there, because we're going to get into these takeaways. And right now, coming out of the pandemic, we're in this virtual world, right? And so you talk about virtual selling versus virtual prospecting. What are we talking about here?
So when the pandemic hit, many people had to change the way they sell. And there were many who were struggling with the whole idea of selling via Zoom, selling virtually without going to a conference, trade show, or in-person networking. They were like fish out of water. 2 years later, many have figured that out. They know how to get on Zoom. They'd prefer in person, but they're comfortable with what happens over a virtual setting. But those people, many of them who have successfully switched to virtual selling, are still struggling with successfully switching to virtual prospecting. And that's one of the places where we can really help. What's very interesting about what's occurred in the last couple of years is that the decision makers who used to go to these in-person kinds of events now realize that they can get all the information they need by sitting in their offices. Not only is it healthier for them, even at this point in time, but it's much more efficient in terms of the way they use their time, much more effective. They can get the information they need. What does that mean for sellers? Well, if you want to get to them where they are, you need to be comfortable with reaching out to them virtually. And even though this is what we started doing 22 years ago, it is certainly changed. Through the pandemic, I would say every 6 weeks, what was working was changing, but we have a whole group of door openers, and we're collecting this information about what was working and what was changing over the course of the pandemic. For people who are new at this, they may still feel like fish out of water. Reach out and get some help. Either have someone else do the door opening for you like we do, or get some help and training and be comfortable making sure that you're being effective in reaching decision makers where they are.
I love it. And I think the big challenge for everybody moving from the world where you're going out on these appointments all the time, you're going here, you're going there, and going to this kind of Zoom thing, and I certainly see it in the people that are trying to prospect me, is that they're not. So you were saying it's so easy to research people. We have LinkedIn, we have all these tools. And so for somebody to send me a message or call me up, and I had it just happen yesterday. I had somebody that basically was reaching out to me as an event rental company. So I have a hospitality company where I send out staff. And
Okay.
so the company that was reaching out to me is actually basically a direct competitor to my service. And they're reaching out to me as an event rental company trying to set up a meeting. And to me, it was silly on two fronts. It was silly because, first of all, the person didn't understand who I was as a customer, which, might have made a difference in terms of being able to appeal to me, maybe.
Yeah.
And then
Just a little.
right. And then the other piece of it is that they just were reaching out completely the wrong way. They were assuming I was something else, and all the information is available at the click of a button. So it's just lazy. So even if they were a service that I was going to want or need or be attracted to, this person seems, I'm going to put it nicely, silly. They seem ridiculous, right? Because
Right.
they're just not doing a micro amount of research that literally is a click of a few buttons away from them. And so I think for folks that are used to, like, well, I'm going to go out to this location, I'm going to talk to a doctor, there's not really, they're not online, they're, the information isn't there. Switching to this world where really a lot of the information is online and it's completely accessible. And not only is it accessible in a way that is accessible to you, where you can find it and know it, the person that you're reaching out to is a little bit more savvy, because we've been all trained up over the last 2 years in this virtual world and how to do it. So if you come on to the technology and you don't know how to work the mute button, you don't know how to put a presentation together, and certainly if you didn't do your research, it just becomes that much more obvious. And so the virtual selling thing, having your sugar honey iced tea together and going into it, big deal, right?
Well, there's something, if you don't mind if I just jump in
Please,
on
please.
the example that you just gave. The worst part about the example you just gave with that person who was basically should never have been reaching out to you, spending time reaching out to you. The worst part about that is that person's boss or that business owner is paying for that person to do completely ineffective work. Right. So part of it is the responsibility of the person who put you on his prospect list to begin with, who never should have. Like, you should never have been on that person's prospect list, right? And never did the research to double check. But also the person who hired that person, who tasked that person with this work, was asleep at the wheel also. So there are checkpoints along the way that should be in place from a process standpoint to make sure that that situation never happens.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's so important. And, for my part, I said, the guy reached out to me with the phone call. I said, connect with me on LinkedIn. And I, because that way, I was able to, just a few seconds of my day, and I cut the phone call short because obviously I didn't have time for that noise. But I, who knows where it'll lead. And for me, I, open to receiving is a big deal. And I think in sales, who knows, that could be a potential employee of mine, and I can train him a little bit better, and he's going to be amazing, because obviously his training so far hasn't worked out so well. So let's talk about this, because I think this is what people are here for, right? The first meeting leads to everything else. So for folks that are watching this show, can you lay out some ways for people to get that first meeting, and just talk about why that first meeting is so important? I think most people you're going to be preaching to the choir to a certain extent. Everybody understands the first impression is the most important. And, if we don't get in that door, obviously, we're not going to make the sale if we don't get in the door. But how do we get that door open? What are the tactics, the strategies that help your door openers get that door open? And what should people be thinking about in terms of setting up their systems and processes to get that door open?
Okay. So if you're not getting as many first meetings with the exact right prospects, I don't mean any meetings, I mean the right meetings. If you're not getting the right meetings and enough of them with your important prospects, then there's a problem in one or more of 5 key planks of door opening success. Some of them have to do with strategy. Some of them have to do with the person, and the others have to do with execution. right? So from a strategy perspective, the very first, we just hit on this a minute ago, the very first plank of door opening success is target. Most people don't spend enough time taking this wide world of prospects and adding filters to make it a more narrow group of prospects so that you're only spending time reaching out to the kinds of prospects who will be the kinds of clients that you really want. It's easy to just talk to lots of people, but time is finite. So if you only have a certain amount of time in a day or a week, make sure that you're spending it on only those prospects who, and centers of influence, who will lead you to the kind of sales that you want. That must be policed. And you have to be very protective of your time to make sure that that happens. If you have a sale that stalled after the first meeting, after you delivered the proposal, maybe a surprise decision maker popped up at the end and put the kibosh on it, usually the offender is target. It was never the right target to begin with. The second plank is message. I'm not talking about marketing message. I'm not talking about your value proposition. This is sales messaging. Sales language goes back to when I was 11 years old. What is it that you're going to say to a prospect on the first call, second call, third call, 20th call, or on that email or the LinkedIn message? This is one-to-one language, whether it's spoken or written, that helps a prospect move from one place in his or her thinking to the next. If your message is not doing that often enough for you, then you need to rethink that. The target and the message need to go hand in hand. So if you put a filter on the target and you have a narrow group of prospects who are all facing, let's say, a trigger moment in their businesses, your messaging can be a slam dunk against that with the reason why they should take the meeting. The sales message in this moment doesn't have to cover everything. You're not selling everything in this moment. You're selling the idea of why this meeting is going to be of such value to this individual. And I do stress individual, right? People talk about personas and all that. Well, you're not selling to a persona. That's a marketing term. You're selling to a person. So that individual, what's important to that person? And that can be researched. Then the third plank is the answers for objections. You're going to face objections. You might as well know what the answers are, and not just any answer, but the right one. The fourth plank is the right door opener. And we spent a lot of time, Cameron, talking about this. Not every salesperson is a great door opener. So if you're in sales and you're responsible for door opening, you need to know that, because there are some things you're going to need to do in order to be effective there. If you're a business leader or a sales manager, you may want to hire some door openers to help your salespeople to have more opportunities. That's that fourth plank is the right door opener doing the work. And the fifth plank is execution. Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Is it LinkedIn? Is it something you're sending to somebody's either work or remote address? What do you say the first time, the third time, the 20th time in order to get that person to agree that it makes sense to move forward and have that meeting? Also, part of execution is time. Are you spending enough time weekly, consistently, peeling that onion back with this important prospect that you've selected to help that person understand why this meeting shouldn't wait? So those are the five planks of door opening.
You said the fifth one is did you say fifth one is
execution? Is the right execution. Absolutely. And how are you keeping track of your progress? That's part of execution too. Are you setting tasks for yourself? So if someone said to follow up with them in 2 months, that you've actually done that, and make sure that that you don't let that person slip off your radar. Because if you do, then all the time you've spent warming this person up will be happily received by the competitor who calls that person, comes in and eats your lunch.
Love it. I love it. I mean, I think those are great. So 1, target, your sales message. 3, answers for objections. 4, the right door opener, and then the right execution on it. And then that focus tip, right? Timing on everything, right? What's the right timing? And I know, I have a campaign through LinkedIn. And so, I don't, after the initial message, I wait a little bit because I don't want to bombard people. You want things to simmer, a little marination happening, and then a follow-up. And then 3 days later, it's a follow-up, and it's a strategic piece, and you make it interesting, right? But that helps. You've targeted down a field of folks that you can communicate with. And then these messages help to further filter things so that when you're spending your time talking to somebody, you're talking to somebody that is actually responded in the positive. You're actually taking your time and using it, not like my friend that reached out to me yesterday that really didn't have a good reason to. But reaching out to somebody that's really primed, you got the pump prime, and now you're ready for a conversation. I don't think there's any point in having an impressive background and an impressive profile if you're talking to the wrong target, the wrong candidate, right? Which is so important. I think that's such a big deal. Great tips. All right, so let's get into this. Third big takeaway: not every great salesperson is a great door opener. So I think we've hit
covered that one.
But let's say you're a CEO, you're an entrepreneur, and you don't really have an option right now. You got to make your business work. How do you become, at least initially, a great door opener for your business?
Right. Well, first of all, you have to recognize what you like to do and what you don't like to do. Because if you're responsible and you are the rainmaker and you don't have a salesperson working for you, so it's you have to do it all. But if this isn't something you like to do, here are a couple tips that might help you. Block time on your calendar and consider it as firm as an initial meeting with your most important prospect, because you would never cancel that. Don't cancel it. It's very easy to cancel it, especially if this is not something you like to do, but block that time and protect it. Make sure you have done your prospect list development and there's only the exact right prospects on the list. You already know the contact information, phone, email, cell phone number for the exact right person. So you're not spending your time doing research while you're supposed to be doing outreach. We have a research department internally, and the prospect list, email verification, phone verification is all done before the door opener even goes live. So from an efficiency standpoint, that's important. So that way, when you sit down and you're supposed to be reaching out to your top 10, you know that your time is protected and you're going to be doing that. The other thing is, if you are hiring a salesperson, let's say it's your first salesperson, and I
was just going to read in my mind. I was going to ask this question.
Yeah, and you need to decide, what kind of salesperson do I hire? This is a big blind spot because, as I said before, a lot of business leaders think that a salesperson is a salesperson, but that's not true. Like, you may be the underdog, but if you hire a salesperson who worked for the market leader, that salesperson may flounder in your environment. If you hire a salesperson who's used to a very structured sales process that was created by someone else, and now they're in your company with no sales process, they may flounder. So it's important to take a look at their background. But before you do, identify what you really need. Do you have a lot of really great clients and your best opportunity is to grow sales there? Maybe that's where you want them to start and you keep the door opening. Or the reverse. Maybe you want to grow those clients and you hire somebody who's going to get the doors open, but that's where that background and the DNA come in. Because if you go out into the market looking for a salesperson who's more of a closer or more of a farmer, but you really needed a door opener and you put them in that role, you are going to be miserable. You're going to want to jump out the window, and it's going to take you 6 months to realize that you hired the wrong person. But the person who took the job is also going to be miserable. So identify what you need for where you are in your pipeline and go hire for that. And then make sure, if you need somebody who's crackerjack at opening doors with people they don't know, that you hire someone who not only has demonstrated that they know how to do that, but that they love that part of the job. Then you don't have that bashing of heads that happens so often. That the business leaders say to me, "Oh, my people won't spend time prospecting." Guess what? They were the wrong people for that.
Let me ask you, because I imagine you've interviewed a few salespeople in your time.
Just a few.
Is there obviously there's a set of characteristics that you're looking for, but
Mhm.
is there typically something that a candidate can do or not do that just sort of says to you, this is either the person or even better, not the person for that role?
Yes. There's a natural curiosity and openness to the person who is very successful in door opening. They're curious about individuals. They're asking questions, but not just any questions. They're asking certain questions. They're able to feel their way through an opportunity in a conversation that may be all of a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and you don't get another chance. They can weave to the left, to the right, as that conversation goes, and then direct it to the outcome that they were looking for, as long as they find the right fit. These people are really gifted at conversation, whereas many sellers will hide behind email, but email only gets you so far. It's phone and email in combination, and with LinkedIn, and you can send things to somebody's office as well, or their home, but it's phone and email in combination, one-to-one, leveraging insights that you have gained by researching the individual, the competitors, the market, and saying something of such value, but then instinctively knowing, what do you say next time? And then next time, whether you've actually reached them and spoken to them or you haven't, how do you get that connection and bring it to the outcome of the meeting? Not everybody can think that through. Not everybody has done that or even wants to do that.
Yeah, I love that natural curiosity piece. I've interviewed over 700 waiters and bartenders and chefs for hospitality roles. And as people walk in the door, you almost know like right away, because if they're smiling when they come through the door, if they're put together in a way that shows they care about the perception of their character as they're walking through the door, that's hospitality right there. And you can almost automatically tell if somebody's not cut out for hospitality if they're not smiling as they're coming through the door. So having that piece where you're saying that natural curiosity piece, I think that's a great game changer for anybody that's in the hunt for somebody that could potentially prospect for them. Because if they're not curious, right, then you get that person that's not going to do the research. Why they're not going to do the research? Because they don't want to do the research. And
That's
if they
right.
don't want to do the research, you can't make people, and I love this, from an HR standpoint, for anybody that, is getting into this game of hiring people, right? This is really important to understand.
Yes.
Without holding a gun to somebody's head, there's literally nothing you can make anybody do that they don't want to do. I mean, it's just a literal impossibility. They may do it in the moment because they say, I want to make you happy to get off my back in this particular moment at this particular time. But if they don't want to do it, it will become a point of contention every single time. It will be the traffic stopper in the routine and the flow.
Absolutely. And if there are business owners who are listening, or sales leaders who are listening, you've likely been in this situation before, and you've tried different things. You might have tried adding an incentive, giving them extra money, and then you'll have a short blip where the activity and the results might increase, but then they go back to what they were before. Or you might have put them on a performance improvement plan, and then you have a short blip where activity and results might increase, but only for a short period of time. Some managers just yell, and because they're just so frustrated, but guess what? You hired the wrong person. Yes. Get the right kind of help. Have people who know what to do and can do it. It goes back to what we talked about at the top of our conversation, is this DNA. Remember that gifted child who I grew up in the house with, who wasn't me? I said to him one time, I said, how do you get to be so very good at what you do? And this was an adult conversation that he and I had. And he said to me, oh, it's really easy. I just don't do anything I'm not good at.
And I was going to say to you, as you're winding through that conversation, it goes back to like education. we get hammered on, okay, we go to math class and we don't happen to be good at math. You got to get better at math.
Right.
But the other approach is, okay, so you're not great at math. What are you good at? Let's focus on that.
And be successful there, and you can hire someone to do the math for you.
It's such a game changer when, especially, you're getting into that, medium-sized business thing, and you can really put people in power forward positions in what their strengths are and just let them run, right? Because you get that sort of situation, and I'm definitely still, recovering from the pandemic. And so I'm still in that position where, okay, I get somebody in, they got to be a little bit of jack of all trades.
Yes.
And it's not fun. It's not fun for me because I have to be a jack of all trades. I have to do things that I'm not always excited to do. And it's a stopgap for me. It slows my production. It slows my flow. So if you're able to, as an entrepreneur, get out of your own effing way and let other people do the things they're good at for you, and let you do what you're amazing at, because if you're in the entrepreneur game, right, you're going to be awesome at something. And that's the whole point. You want to build a business that has strong power forwards doing their thing all the time. Let them run, let them gallop, let them have fun doing the thing that they're interested in. So if they're prospecting and they're naturally curious, let them be curious and let them go to town, right?
Right, absolutely. And I'm here to give all the business leaders out there permission to think differently about how they accomplish sales. It's okay to break it up, as long as Cameron said earlier, you have a good process for the handoff. If you don't know what that is, reach out. You can ask me questions. Sam is on the call too. You can ask Sam questions about how to do that in a way that's smooth, so that you could have overall greater effectiveness and achieve greater results than you could if you had one person doing all of those things.
I love it. This has been amazing. I'm going to throw, if you're in the market, or you need to just reach out to somebody, set up a meeting, figure out how to get better prospecting for your business, you got to reach out to Kopp Consulting. Make sure that you're reaching out in the comments. If you're on LinkedIn, connect with Caryn, connect with Samantha. This is what this show is all about, connecting with people. If you're watching this on the replay, remember to hit that hashtag replay in the comments. Let us know you're watching this on the replay. And also make sure you follow up. We haven't talked a lot about follow-up specifically. We've mentioned it in a couple of different ways, but I don't think we've actually said the word follow-up. But when it comes to sales and when it comes to getting things done, it's all in the follow-up. So if you need that help today, make sure you're following up with Caryn. Make sure you're following up with Samantha and get it done. Get it off your plate, especially if it's one of these things that you don't love doing and you want to focus on other aspects of the business. I can't recommend that enough, right? I love Timothy Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. Are you familiar with that book, Caryn?
Absolutely. In fact, we are new snowbirds down here in Florida for the last 6 months. And when I moved down here, I said I'm going to work a 6-hour workday, which is about half of a normal schedule for me. And it can work. It can work if you take a look at how do you stay in your sweet spot, and then make sure you have the team of people to help you do everything else.
I love that. And so that book is very much about that. Find the things that you love doing and do them, and let other people do the stuff you don't want to do.
That's right.
That is the way you get more done. If you want to be a mogul, you want to be a leader, you want to be somebody moving on to the next thing. I think, we have these bigger than life personalities, and it's not about them, but I'll mention just Elon Musk just really quickly, because he's, everywhere in the news and everything. You can't, you can talk about, he's gifted, whatever, but I think the bottom line secret is he's found how to motivate and empower other people in his businesses. Otherwise, he couldn't do what he does.
That's right.
That's it. That's the bottom line. You find other people, you find ways to attract them in. He's a master at marketing. Got to give him that. And he's built a way to empower people across aerospace, across the motor industry, and now he's buying Twitter. So there you go.
There you go.
So we got some links. Samantha's putting some contact information up there. Get in touch with Samantha and Caryn. We have the Calendly link in there. She's putting the whole deal in there. So you get right into following the tips and tricks.
And don't forget to link in with me too, everybody.
There you go. And Alexandria Rosa says, make your schedule how you want. Exactly. One thing just to finish off the show, and I'll leave you with the last word. You said you're reading when we did this, Jack Daly's Life by Design, and you said that would be the book that you would recommend to people. So I'll leave you with the last word, and I'll play us off with the Biz Dev Live theme. Please share with people your thoughts on Jack Daly's Life by Design.
Well, if you want to live your life by design, you have to figure out what you want and then work backwards to make sure you get it. He just released that book, I think it was a month ago. So if you haven't read it, make sure that you get it. He has certainly lived a life of his own by significant design. So that is the word I would leave with everybody. And make sure if you want something, go out and get it. Why not?
That's amazing. And I think Alexandra Rosa, she put this in here strong. Thank you so much. An amazingly strong show. Thank you very much for being with me, Caryn, and being awesome. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you next week on
Bye, everybody.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live.